Alright everybody, what we're doing today is an American flag on a Beware of Dog sign. These Beware of Dog signs are great. You can get them at Walmart, Home Depots, Lowe's, any type of home improvement store. I bet you even some of the like 99-cent stores might even have them. This is actually made out of aluminum, real thin sheet of aluminum or steel. I don't have a magnet to tell, so I don't know. But they can be bought, prepped up real easy, and they make a nice little display sign if you want to display it in your window, or say that, you know, American flag's airbrushed here, or whatever your type of lettering you might want to put over the top of it just to grab some more business. We're doing an American flag today because I had a friend that was wondering how I did the stitching and the stars and everything. So this is going to be kind of a reference class on doing detail in flags and the American flag. Now, this class is actually going to be the American flag just due to the fact that I'm in America. If I was in Canada, I'd be doing a Canadian flag. So we're going to start with the prep of it. Now the prep is 400 grit wet sand, and I'm going to be using still debating on what paint I'm going to be using, either Wicked or Spectratex. I might use Spectratex. But 400 grit is a great grit to prep with when you're using water-based paints. Now, even if it was a plastic sign, you'd still be using the same grit. Now, we got some people out there that are totally accident prone, so I laid down a matting here in order to hold the panel from sliding back and forth, to where I'm holding it with my fingers and cutting my fingers with the thin metal. So if you use these rubber-based matting pads, they work great for carbon fiber, like we learned last week, and they also work great for holding panels and stopping stuff from moving around. You'll see me polishing out parts on top of this stuff too, so that way I don't have to worry about the polisher grabbing the part and slinging it across the room. So, got that basically sanded down. Now I could have guide coated it. I could have shot a little bit of a guide coat on it, just to sand it down, so you could tell where you sanded and where you didn't. So I didn't do that. You can look at it and pretty much see that it's pretty well scratched. So, and that's what you want. You want that actual physical adhesion you can grab from scratching it down real good. Okay, now I'm going to bring this over to my easel. And we'll get ready to airbrush this. So does anybody have any questions about what we just did, the prep work on this? Anybody have any questions on why we used the grit we used, or what else do we need to do to prep this? Okay. Question up, are we going to prime it or use a sealer? Now, I like using the AutoAir Sealer White. I use it a lot. It holds up very good, has great adhesion to aluminum. So, that's what I will shoot on it next. Now to clean it, how do we clean it? Now I cheat. I use Windex. I use Windex to clean, or another product that I love using, which is Croftgate. I use a product called Croftgate Multi-Clean. And it looks just like that. It's a multi-surface cleaner, degreaser, comes off clean, doesn't leave any residues behind. Now with the Windex, what I've noticed lately is that they're putting in this chemical to make the windows stay shinier longer. You know, they talk about it staying shiny or cleaner for longer, and so my fear is that they're actually putting a chemical in there that's stopping stuff from sticking to it. You know, almost adding something to it. So I know that this product wipes off completely clean, leaves no chemicals, no residues behind. So this is the back side of a Beware of Dog sign, or God Warb, if you read it backwards. So this is wiped down with the Croftgate Multi-Clean, and now I'm going to grab my Dagger airbrush due to the fact that it has a tall cup on it. I love cheating. DeVilbiss makes it easy to cheat with their tall cup. So we're going to put a little bit of sealer in it. Now the sealer, we're going to add just a little bit of 4011 reducer. Not much. You don't want to reduce it down too much, but you want to reduce it down to where it sprays. Here's a great little pointer for everybody out there. If you're going to mix it in your color cup, take the reducer first. Drop in a little bit of reducer, and then add your paint to it. Now what this does is this acts as a little bit of a binder in between the reducer dropping down into the deep area where you can't mix it up well. Okay, so I'm going to put a little bit of reducer in it. I ran a little bit of lacquer thinner through it first, just to make sure. So put your 4011 in there. Now with your 4011, now we're just going to add the sealer. Now it doesn't take much sealer. Sealer goes pretty far. Now I loosen up the front of the airbrush, which causes the back feeding. And I'll sit there and backfeed, and it'll bubble up inside the cup, and that'll stir it up for me. Now with the water-based paints, you get a lot more surface tension, so you get a lot more bubbles in it. So you could take a paper towel and just hold the paper towel over the top of it, and whenever the bubbles come up and hit the paper towel, it'll just go into the paper towel and not make a mess. So now with that stirred up, we're just going to take it and we're going to apply light, even coats. Now if you notice you start getting a fisheye look, that means you're putting it on too heavy. Okay, so we're just going to do light coats, light, even coats. A lot of people, when they first switch over from urethane based over to the water based paints, they say, man, it fish eyes, it does this weird looking molting look to it, it does all this weird stuff. And that's because you're applying the paint on like it's a urethane. Now urethanes, you can put it on as heavy as you want and not have much problems at the beginning. What does happen later on is you get adhesion pop, solvent pop. You get all different type of stuff that will give you this this weird look to it later on. It doesn't happen right away. It happens later on with film thickness problems. So now we're going to keep on applying this paint. Now see the way I went the opposite direction now? This is a good way to get nice even coverage on something. And think about it as mowing a lawn. You're going to do a 50% overlap as you're going. Now if you notice, this is covering a little bit. I'm going a little bit slower this time because I already have that very light coat on there that's helping the surface tension. So now each coat, I can put it on a little bit thicker, a little bit thicker, and a little bit thicker. We're going to actually build it up until it's completely white. This stuff is a bright white color, and we're going to keep on applying these coats until we get up that bright white look. And today's class is based on, we're going to do an American flag. We're going to do a close-up version of it. So you're going to have a blue section up here with just a couple stars, and then the red and white stripes. So today could actually be a day for all the vets out there. Anybody that served our country, it's a salute for them. If you're up in Canada, then thank you for doing an American flag today, but it would be great to see whatever country you're in, it would be awesome to see the results of what you're doing, the country you're in. Alright, I'm just switching operators here. We got one operator for here. Deputy is following along, so I didn't want him to have to sit there and worry about what's going on in class. So this way it's kind of better for him. So is there any questions so far about why we're sealing it or anything to do with that? No questions. All right. Okay, the reason why we're doing thin coats is to allow it to dry up a little bit. You notice me waiting in between each stage. Now that's because I don't want to trap any solvents in there. Any water, any type of liquids that we have to allow to evaporate out. Now the reason why I do it in such thin coats is it allows it to dry faster. We don't get this surface modeling, and we get a smoother, a little bit smoother coverage. Now, when I reduce this down, the sealer white, I reduce it probably 5 to 10%. I don't go too much on the reducer because you want it to cover, but you also don't want it to spray real grainy either. Now the sealer is going to spray a little bit grainier than any other paint, the Wicked's or Auto Airs. And the reason why is because it's designed for coverage. Okay, so this is another coat. Now, if you want to dry this faster, what do you guys do? If you want to speed up the drying time, do you guys add heat? Do you guys take a hot air gun and heat it up? Okay, cool air, cool. Alright, yes, you do not want to apply heat. What heat will do is it will cause it to skin over on the top layer. If it skins over on the top layer, then you get moisture down below it, and then when you mask on top of it, you just peel the top layer off with the masking. So that'll really kill the adhesion of it. So I want to thank everybody for paying attention and following along. Yes, air movement will help. So this way it helps it out a little bit. You can take a small little tiny, you can take a little 4-inch fan like I have right here, and just set it up next to your work and just kind of blow onto it. Or if you got a bigger fan or whatever, however you guys want to do it. Now each time I do this, I switch directions to get the coverage as even as you can. Now one of the questions is, can you switch sealer white for just a white? You can, but the adhesion is not the same. The adhesion for the sealer white is a lot better than the adhesion with white paint. And sealer white dries a slight bit more chalky than your white paint. So the adhesion's a little bit better. So once we get this kind of set up and covered good enough, we're going to use this white as some of the white on the flag. So we need to get decent coverage with this white. Now, if your flag is mainly black, you might want to start off with black. Okay, now I'm just doing a light coat diagonally over it. Now this is a lot lighter because I didn't wait that long, so I'm just basically throwing a little bit of pigment on it. Not putting it on real heavy. Now normally I do this before class, but this is part of the class is prep work on this. We want to see how to prep these aluminum signs that you can get. Now they also have flashing, metal flashing that's galvanized. Pretty much the same prep on it. The drawback to that is you're working with galvanized metal, which is very toxic, especially if you ever heat it up. It releases gases. So I try not to use too much of the galvanized metals. I prefer to stick with something that's ungalvanized, untreated. A lot of the stuff that I use is called sign blank material, and it's from a sign shop that sells 4x8 sheets of it, and then I have a plasma cutter and I just cut it up into squares. So that's one way to do it. If you don't have a plasma cutter, it can be ripped in a table saw. Aluminum sheeting can be cut on a table saw with the right bit, carbide bit. Or if you have a skill saw, you can cut it with a skill saw. Or with me, with the plasma cutter, it just makes it to where I can make these panels real quick. So as soon as this sets up a little bit, I'm going to do one more coat, and I think we're good with the white. I think this will be good enough. So right now I'm drying the panel. And I want to thank Dusty and who was it, Doug, that did the carbon fiber last week, put the pictures up. That was awesome of you guys. You guys turned out really good. Now remember to kill your cat before you start painting. Sometimes it's better to have okay, so like I said, we're going to do one more coat as soon as this flashes off. Now if you see that you're getting it real grainy or real textured, what you can do is you could come in with a light sandpaper or Scotch-Brite and just lightly Scotch-Brite it before you go ahead. You could do it with your compressor, but it's a lot cheaper and a lot less destructive running a fan than it is running a 6 horsepower compressor or 5 horsepower compressor in order to cool your panel down. You could do it with the heat gun, put on the cold setting. Me, I have this fan cooling my computer, so I just take it from here and put it over to the side. Now before we paint, we're going to actually heat set this. We're going to heat set the sealer, and I always do that. Okay, so now this panel is basically dry. I'm going to heat set it, let it cool, lightly scuff it, and then shoot another coat. Now whenever you're heat setting something, just move it back and forth on the panel. Now what you'll notice is that this is such thin aluminum that I'll actually get the panel to warp before I get it to the proper temperature. So I'm going to be working it back and forth, trying to distribute the heat and not get it all in one corner. But while you're doing this, you can actually see the metal moving while I'm heating it. And it's not from blowing it, it's actually warping the panel. Okay, so now I'll switch this to cool and cool the ceramic inside the heat gun. It'll make the heat gun last 3 times longer. Now for those that are in the US, this heat gun, I think it was like 30 bucks, someplace around there at Harbor Freight. You can get them cheaper if you want by saving a 20% coupon. Now what usually will happen is you'll shut it off after you're heating it, and you won't put it to cool. And as soon as you put it to cool, then if you don't put it to cool, when you shut it off, the ceramic will get brittle and break. And I've witnessed that with a couple of them. I had one that was made by a company called Masters. It's one of the top of the line ones, and I had the ceramic break in that, just from getting in a rush, not shutting it off right. So I'm going to use a gray Scotch-Brite pad now, just to lightly scuff it. I'm not really trying to scuff it for adhesion as much as clean off any of the dry spray. Any of the overspray, I just want to kind of scuff up a little. Now you could use 400 grit if you wanted to, just don't use it wet. Because we're not allowing sufficient dry time to wet sand it yet. Okay. Now I got all these fancy things that are called tack cloths that I have no idea what I did with. Here's a tack cloth, and I'm just going to lightly tack it off. That'll clean it around. Now if you notice, I'll tack all the way around the surface on my easel, because most of your dirt's not going to come from the panel. It's going to come from what you have around the panel, because you're blowing air on it. It's going to blow up and get all over stuff. Alright, so now another coat, and this is just a light coat just to get nice even coverage. I didn't put enough reducer in this, so it's not coming out the way I want it to. Add a little bit of reducer. Backfeed it, mix it up a little bit. And now let's blow a coat on here. Now this is going to be my basic white of the project. I'm not going to shoot a white paint. Sealer white is bright enough for what we're doing. Alright, so there we go, we're done. I'm going to let that set up a little bit while I clean out my airbrush. Now to clean out my airbrush, I'm just using the Croftgate Multi-Clean. You can use Windex, soapy water, basically whatever you want to do to clean it out. And then my last clean out is usually lacquer thinner. So, hey guest, welcome to the show. Thanks for hanging out. This is an airbrush class we're doing right here, teaching people how to airbrush. So we got Boldface in here. How you doing? Guess the guest names that blog comes up with. You gotta love it. Now, if you're a guest in here, we probably already know who you are. Just go sign into your own account. Come on in here and hang out. Okay, now with this setup, now this could be anything you want to paint. If you were painting a mailbox, or that's made out of aluminum or tin, some are tin, some are aluminum. A birdhouse that you made out of wood, basically anything you want to paint. Computer cases, it's almost the same prep as this. You're going to basically sand it down with some 400 grit wet sand, seal it, and then the process is all going to be the same if it was no matter what type of substrate it is, other than material. Material, you wouldn't seal it. If it was made out of a material or anything super porous, then you wouldn't seal it. You'd just work on top of what you have. Leather, you can seal. You can use a sealer on leather if you want.